Welcome back, the State of Affairs podcast, viewers and the audience. After a long pause, I am back with the podcast, and I have got with me today Dr. SreeradhaDatta. She is a fellow and head of the center at Vivekananda International Foundation. She heads neighborhood studies, and we will be talking about her book, Act East Policy and Northeast India, basically. And about her, you can just Google her. Apart from that, she is a great researcher and an inspiration for all the research scholars in the IR and from different fields related to this. Today, we'll be discussing about her book, basically.
Strong reference to the Northeast. So, I mean, over the years, while I've constantly worked on the region of South Asia neighborhood, Northeast has always been somewhere around. It's never been lost. So it's been there, and over the years, last few years, we've also seen how policies towards Northeast has changed. Earlier on, there was a lot of isolation for a variety of reasons: physical, geographical, psychological. Ever since, I would say, the last 10 years or so, there has been attempt by the central government, of course, as well as the state government, to address that. And we know, of course, that the Look East policy was launched in the early 90s, and we've had a lot of interaction with the Southeast Asian economies, the tiger economies at that point of time, as we know them as. And our whole India's entire engagement with Southeast Asian economies really increased and potentially, substantially at that point of time. But somehow during that Lucas policy, while there was a larger understanding that Northeast would also be part of that whole, discourse, somehow did not really happen that way. And you see that when 2014 a new government came in led by Prime Minister Modi, he changed that policy to Act East policy. So basically, it meant that while we have a very strong policy towards engaging with the Southeast Asian economies, Northeast region is going to be a very critical part of that. And many of the policies that you see this particular government had unfolded, which is neighborhood first, also involved Northeast India really. And so it is actually from that context of studying the neighborhood and many of the policies that were unfolding within this same space of South Asia that I thought that this book, I needed to go back. And I think somewhere in my book I've also mentioned that I tried to go back to my earlier, notes and paper and file work and see that have we moved ahead? Where are we? I mean, what was the situation then 18 years ago, 20 years ago, and where are we now? So this is basically how the book came about.
Quite interesting that is, and quite fascinating. The first thing that I would like to know more about is that you have been writing. The basic theme of this book is that you have been tracking all the infrastructure things in the northeastern region, because that's so vital for the look east policy. And basic bottom line is that unless and until we ramp up the entire infrastructure in the northeastern region, that's so vital to the foreign policy of India also. uh, what are the things that you as a writer see changing since 2014 onwards, when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to government schemes, and all the at the policy level, the paradigm shift, I'll say, if I'm right. So what actually transpired in your mind when you got to know at the bottom of this thing, that the government schemes after 2014, what actually made it from look east to the act east policy?
Yes, if you actually look at the book, which is I think about 6 or 7 chapters, I've actually divided into these sub issues and how whether there has been a transformation, as you're saying, or whether it's like, I mean, something that I mean as a recurring theme for me when I talk about the Northeast is that every time the Northeast comes up in any conversation, there is a constant reference to the fact of the potential of the Northeast. And I think I'm a kind of disappointed to see, I mean, when I went back again, over the course of time, I was during 2011, I took over as a research, as a director of an Central Institute in Kolkata, based in Kolkata, called Maulana Abdul Azad Institute of Asian Studies. I was able to actually open up 5 centers of research study within 5 universities of the Northeast, which essentially meant from 2012, 2013 onwards, I was traveling periodically to that region. So I had a kind of a idea as to what was happening. So till 2017, I was constantly there. From Arunachal to Mizoram to Manipur to Assam, there was a constant travel. There was a constant interaction because of the centers, the research work that was on. I always met with the students of the universities where our center was located. So that was something that I really enjoyed doing and made me understand the region a lot better. But as I said, coming back to this whole thing, I understood that while we talk about potential, and there certainly is, much of it even today while we speak remains untapped. There has been a lot of difference. I mean, the fact that earlier on there was a tendency to keep Northeast isolated, and we didn't ever build the border roads because we were scared that good border roads or good infrastructure would actually invite hostile forces across and enable them easy access to India. That shift is very typical now. I mean, it's something really a paradigm shift in that sense, that now the understanding is that if you need to keep your borders secure, keep your region secure, you need to build infrastructure, you need to develop such issues of infrastructure, technology, and all kind of thing, which is what this government has been doing. So there has been a real jump start to developing infrastructure within the region, as well as the region with the outside neighboring world. And this is for the first time, even like as I said, uh, Ba- Northeast is connected with Central India through Upper Bengal with only a 21 kilometers corridor, while it shares international boundaries with 5 of our neighbors. So obviously there was a physical distance, geographical distance. It is the first time now that distance has actually been able to, we've been able to minimize it, and that too because Bangladesh has been able to agree to give us transit, and there's a whole transformation that took place. But also not only with the mainstream India and rest of the India, but even within Northeast, travel and communication was very difficult earlier. So it's something that people from Arunachal were not able to access Manipur, Mizoram, because there were no, I mean, communication roads, there were no railways lines, which are, I mean, I'm not saying that whole mosaic of network corridors have already been completed. It's a work in progress, but there has been much progress on that front. So while we are developing cross-border connectivity, a lot of work has happened with Bangladesh. We are building with we are strengthening our cross-border connectivity with Nepal, which of course with whom we have a open door policy. But also within the region, we are developing a lot of infrastructure for easy movement of people within the region and with the rest of India.
You have mentioned about the importance of Bangladesh and importance of good relations with Bhutan, with Nepal, and other neighboring countries, for that matter, in order to make Act East policy a success, given the way the proximity of the geographical connectivity that we have got with these countries. So, can we say that the economic potential and the economic success of this entire region of Northeast is also now converging into the strategic interests? Can we safely assume that?
Yes, I would say so, because there is a large strategic. I mean, right now, Northeast is actually connecting both South Asia and Southeast Asia. So obviously, it's a critical space. And if you look at the regionalism that India is now, trying to support, uh, give it a push. And if you recall, BIMSTEC has been something that this particular government has been really pushing. There are lots of activity which is happening on the BIMSTEC front, and there again, within BIMSTEC, Northeast again assumes a critical space. Whole connection with South Asia and with Myanmar, Thailand is through the Northeast. So we also got cross-border, facilities developing with Myanmar, much before Act East or much before a neighborhood first. We had started building a Kaladan multimodal transport project. Unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, it has still not been, it's near to completion, but not yet completed, much beyond its line. But we are also building a trilateral highway which will connect Myanmar to Thailand from India. And in fact, Bangladesh is also, even this time when Bangladesh Prime Minister had a state visit a month ago to India, she again, uh, showed her interest, that the fact that Bangladesh would also like to be connected. Also, if you look at the, as I said, mentioned BIMSTEC, we are now working on a multimodal transport plan within BIMSTEC countries. So there again, Northeast will become a fulcrum. So absolutely correct. While there is huge potential of the region, there is also a critical strategic importance of the region, and I think that's understood very well by the government. And I think they've put in a lot of work to see how that can be, actualized.
Apart from all the mentions that have been made about Bangladesh and its importance for Northeast policy and Act East policy, actually, you have been also writing on bilateralism with Bangladesh and India, between Bangladesh and India. So, where do you see Bangladesh individually as a country, as a state, important to this? You have been tracking all the political developments and all the foreign policy issues of Bangladesh. So where do you see Bangladesh becoming an important element of this policy?
Oh, Bangladesh, in fact, is a very important element. As I mentioned earlier, that if Bangladesh had not given us transit, uh, through Bangladesh, we would not been able to easily access the Northeast like now. So, for instance, a lot of commerce, transport, goods are moving. A couple of days ago, I think a couple of weeks ago, I would say, from Assam, oil tankers and other cargo movement happened through Bangladesh into Tripura, which normally would take 2 weeks, happened in just 3 to 4 days. The costing, and this is just a rough estimate. Suppose it's entire, the costing earlier was used to be 100 rupee for this particular movement. Now it's come down to rupees 20. So I'm just saying, in not only in terms of bringing down the time, but the communication, but all other felicitation has been possible because Bangladesh agreed to give us transit. And this is, I mean, all across. I mean, we've been having a lot of, we have now cross border train, we have cross border road, of course, inland water transport, and of course India has access to their port facilities, which will again help Tripura and other northeast states access a lot of goods, lot of, and again, I mentioned Tripura here particularly because Tripura again has played a very critical role in terms of increasing this communication with Bangladesh. So Bangladesh and India, the kind of relationship they share now is, I think, has not been seen ever. It's unprecedented. It's a probably the best level that we've ever seen. We only can hope that we can strengthen this level and take it, forward. But it's for making Northeast, a robust space for us. I think Bangladesh has played a very positive role also there, and I think it would not have been possible without their support.
You have also edited BIMSTEC, The Journey and Way Ahead. And I would like you to shed some light on the element of the maritime security when it comes to Bay of Bengal area and other things related to it. When it comes to Act East policy, where do you see this element just coming into this entire discourse?
Maritime security is of course critical. As you know, within in the Bay of Bengal, the kind of, about 70% of the world's oil trade, moves through this area. So I think keeping the sea lines of communication free and open is something critical to all the Bay of Bengal countries. So India has been, as part of the Indian Ocean Regional, cooperation framework, and within BIMSTEC and Bay of Bengal, maritime security has assumed huge importance. And there has been, again, for the after a huge, I think, again, unprecedented amount of defense exercises taking place, military exercises taking place within the Bay of Bengal countries, within the IOR countries, obviously keeping maritime security in place. I think everybody, and if you right now, if you see how Indian Ocean has assumed uh, kind of importance and strategic space which it never had earlier, is all about keeping these sea lines of communication, maritime security, keeping in mind maritime security, because there is, of course, I mean, there's no mincing the word that China has been, we a lot of us, not only India, a lot of the Bay of Bengal or Indian Ocean countries do see China's presence. There's a kind of a threat perception about that, and one would not, kind of be taken kind of saying surprise. So I think at this point of time, all the countries have converged together to ensure that maritime security is ensured for each and everyone. It's just not India. I think the whole idea within BIMSTEC and within the IOR region is that we must understand each other. So there's a much greater understanding of maritime domain awareness, which wasn't there earlier. Much understanding. There's every day there's clarity being introduced in this particular subject. So of course, it is of critical importance to all the countries in the Bay of Bengal.
Northeast also is important when it comes to internal security dynamics of India. So have you dealt with this thing in the book itself? That how infrastructure building and the economic progress and economic potential that this region has got can actually help bridging the gaps between the regional people and the mainland part of the country that we have.
Yes, in fact, a whole lot of these chapters you'll find where there is, and of course, my one of my, I think the second last chapter, which is on cross-border facilities, is different. But I've constantly talked about how this infrastructure development, uh, the kind of economic engagement that's happening. There's an attempt by both state governments and central governments working together to attract investments. We've again, after many years, got Bangladeshi investments coming in. We are hoping some more investment from the neighborhood will come. But a lot of movement has happened in the Northeast, which is again, something that, both I think people from the region understand and are able to now engage in a much more robust manner with the rest of India. And that, of course, will, attribute and, contribute to the larger security understanding. And, earlier, as I said, there was a kind of a psychological gap which is being bridged. It's difficult overnight because there's a huge ethnic mosaic within that space. And while we keep talking about Northeast, I must say this, that those 8 countries, right from states from Arunachal to Sikkim to Assam to Meghalaya to Tripura, Mizoram, each one is different. Like the two largest state in the region is Arunachal and Assam, right? But Arunachal has the least number of populated people there. But Assam actually contributes to 70% of the economy of the region. And so also the population is much dense in Assam. But the other state, the Sikkim, is again a small state. So there are different others. Each one has a different kind of a, I would say, importance, has a different flavor. The whole, the indicators are different, the factors are different. So it's very difficult to club. I mean, I would say not. It's not possible while we are discussing activities that every state, which is the 8 states that we are discussing, known as the 8 sisters, are part of the activities. It's not. They're not. Assam is very much part of the activity. Manipur, Mizoram, Tripura, they play a very critical role in the Act East policy or within this whole BIMSTEC region. But given the location of Arunachal, which is high above, it's not possible to constantly have the same activity or the development plans for it. But at the same time, much of the investment, much of the economic expansion that is taking place is positively affecting all the 8 states in different ways.
And one more thing that from the book, and after that I'll shift to another question, is that as a reader or as the readers, I'll urge all the audience and all the viewers to actually get the copy of the book, and it's available on the Amazon, and read it. And what are the key things that as readers we have to look into the book so as to get most of it? What are those key things?
I, of course, talk about the infrastructure a lot. I talk about the economic potentials. I talk about the energy trade, which is something that, it's part of the popular discourse now. I also kind of bust the myth by saying that, there's a huge potential. It's kind of, I'm saying, in fact, my last chapter, I think, penultimate chapter, not the last chapter. Last chapter is more of a postscript where I'm trying to offer some policy prescriptions. But I actually say that, is this what the, I mean, I'm saying we have to stop and think here for a second, because physically, geographically, the nature of Northeast is very different from the rest of India. So are we just imposing our plans and projects on Northeast? I mean, is Northeast part of it? Because the way I see it right now, Northeast is only a transit for our Act East policy. I mean, I'm just saying we must ensure that in this entire process of engagement with the Southeast economies, as in the South Asian economies, Northeast has to also equally contribute, and that's something that we need to kind of understand a little more deeply, because as I said, the geography does not support large projects. I mean, that's something that I'm constantly referring to in this book. And I think we need to, I mean, we know that Northeast has bamboo, it has organic products, it's got some small industries which has done very well. So can we then take them into a larger space and see how much they can contribute in terms of the, as of now, the way, just speaking just now, I don't think Northeast is able to economically or otherwise contribute much in terms of the cargo movement or the commerce that we want to develop with the economies around South Asia and Southeast Asia. I'm saying we need to rewind it and see that while big ticket projects are always important, because some of that, without that infrastructure of transport connectivity as well as energy, it's impossible to take the thing. But in terms of developing industries and in terms of ensuring that the local population is also employed in many of this industry that we are setting up, we have to see that what the Northeast is capable of, what is its capacity, what is the wherewithal that they have, and what is it that interests them. I mean, just because somebody sitting in Hyderabad or somebody sitting in Mumbai decides that, okay, this is good for Northeast, let's do it, I don't think that's going to work. I mean, we've seen, I mean, in the past, there's been many knee-jerk movements. We've tried to impose one particular project which hasn't worked earlier. So we must learn from those mistakes. And I think that's what I'm also have referred to it in a, pretty strongly here. And I think we need to kind of stop and, revise or maybe kind of review our projects and our plans for Northeast, and see how Northeast, each part of Northeast is also part of these plans and programs, and they should also be very happy to be in that manner which we can progress together, because it's impossible to progress without all of equal stakeholders participating. I think stakeholders from within the region and outside all have to work together to make this a positively brimming economic zone and corridor for us.
When you say that there are geographical constraints when we look at the infrastructure development and the project development in the northeastern region, that makes role of Bangladesh as our good neighbor an important an important contributor to this entire element of our foreign policy and also of our domestic policy. Since we have seen that both the countries share warm relations, bilateral relations, where do you see that this bilateralism actually is going to on the trajectory of being good neighbors? Firstly,
As I said, that India and Bangladesh share a kind of relationship which has never been before. So it's, they often refer to it as the golden period, the Shonali Odhai. But the more, I mean, that's what I'm saying, both the leaders on both sides, both the governments on both sides are constantly working to deepen the relationship. And every time there's a summit meeting, we see new projects and ideas being thrown into that basket that we are working on. More importantly, while at this point of time, government to government, leader to leader relationship is very good, I think the people on both sides, especially Bangladeshis, need to uh, feel the benefits of working with India. I think that is when in the relationship would have really transformed. I mean, every neighbor will have some kind of issues. It's not possible that everything is always positive. There are concerns on both sides, Bangladesh and India. But I mean, for us, Bangladesh is just one neighbor. But if you look at the geography, we are surrounding Bangladesh from all sides. So obviously, they have certain apprehensions and concerns vis-a-vis India. And but the minute they realize that engagement with India has been beneficial for them, and it has actually accrued dividends in terms of easy mobility, in terms of increasing their economic space and development. The kind of bilateral trade we have, 12 years ago it was less than 2 billion. Now it's 16 billion bilateral trade, and Bangladesh again was always, you know uh, there is a trade deficit in favor of India. But now for the first time ever, Bangladesh is selling us over 2 billion worth of goods. So obviously there has been huge progress in bilateral relation. There are concerns, but I think the minute people, and many of these projects which are underway, some of course have been completed, will actually only ensure that people get benefited. And once people are benefited of any particular development projects or any other bilateral initiatives, uh, I mean, irrespective of what the governments want, that project will always, work and only deepen in the years to come. And that's how I look at the bilateral relation at this point of time.
I guess I'm out of time, and you joined us on this short notes. Thank you again, and we'll be looking forward to join us again on issues that, because this is an important topic always for civil servants, for readers, and for IR enthusiasts and all other people who are interested into learning all these things. Thank you again. You joined us, and. Uh, I'll seriously urge all the viewers to actually have a look at this book and get a coffee and read it, and also drop a review about things. And we'll be expecting a new update on the book sooner, I guess.
Thank you so much.